It's the only way to be sure.
I want you to rest well, and a month from now, this Hollywood big shot's gonna give you what you want. I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Snowpiercer.
Wah, wah, wah. He's the man with the coldest touch. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting episode of Inside Your Screen, where we're talking all things Snowpiercer. This is Season 2, Episode 2, Smolder to Life. Brendan, what were your general thoughts of this episode?
I really like this episode. I preferred it to the first episode.
Is that because Best Hill was made trained detective?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was one of the highlights.
And there was a little bit more Ruth, and you love Ruth.
Ruth. I adore Ruth.
You want to bang Ruth 7 ways from Sunday, don't you?
No, I just really love to kind of be served dinner by her. I'd love to have a dinner in hospitality, and Ruth kind of pampering over me and making sure everything's right.
Oh, so you'd want her as some subservient sort of person, some slave to you, Brendan? Is that what you're saying?
Nah, just for her to do her job.
Fair enough. There was a lot. Once again, another episode where a lot's been happening. I get the feeling in series 2 that the action and the pace is just goes breakneck speed here.
Although this was really weird, but we're about half an hour into the episode now. If you're listening in the USA, you obviously watch it with trailers on TNT. In Europe, we get it on Netflix the day after, so we kind of don't have to wait for, there's no gaps where we have to wait 5 minutes for the trailers or the adverts in the middle. So we kind of watch it in a go. But it was about half an hour through with about 15 minutes left, and I actually thought this has actually been a lot slower paced than the previous episode, and I liked it. And then the last 15 minutes were an absolute whirlwind.
Yeah. Well, let's get through it then. So, Best Hill has been made trained detective, and I quite like what they've done here, because I think in the first episode, she was just lingering around, and I think you made a comment in the last episode where she's just essentially, hanging around Leighton. I think there was a kind of specific point to be made here where it's like, no, you know what, Till, you're going to be the trained detective. And she has her own B subplot thing going on in this episode where she's trying to find out the identity of someone who's been assaulted on the train and everything like that.
Can I be honest and start with a little fear that I had at the very start of the episode, because you're spot on.
You thought she was going to die.
Yeah, in the first episode, right, we saw Bess questioning herself. Mm-hmm. We saw fear, before the battle with the guys from Big Alice. She was fearful. She was questioning herself. And then it's at the start of this episode, it kind of went straight into that with Bess as well, where she's kind of questioning what's the point of me? I just follow Leighton around and stuff like that. Now, I'm not sure, again, in the USA, when you watched it live on TV, whether you got the same message that you did on Netflix, but this is the first time I've ever watched a show on Netflix. And before the show started, a warning came up on the screen. Did you get that? I
got the warning. Yeah.
And it said, it was a spoiler for the episode, but we'll get into that as well. But it said there will be a suicide during this episode. And just anybody, it was a charity, and I understand kind of why they did it and do that now for a lot of shows, because there's a lot of people suffering with mental health issues and so on and so forth. But there was a warning about a suicide, and the show started with Bess questioning herself.
So you immediately kind of thought, wow,
my heart kind of sunk at the start of the episode. I was like, no, they're going to kill off Bess, and Bess is going to kill herself. That was and I'm not going to lie, my heart sunk.
It is a really good point that you make here, because whenever there have been, I know I don't want to sort of dip my toe into kind of the politics here with TV shows now, but obviously, there is a lot of stuff going on, and in terms of there was that whole thing where was it Netflix or was it Amazon where they had to kind of go back to their, oh no, it was Sky, wasn't it? Sky had to go to their, their intro, their sort of blurbs of their kind of TV shows, and like even films from like the past where you're dealing with like maybe religious issues or race issues, and they've had to kind of rewrite the kind of blurb of the synopsis of the film to say like, hey, you know what? This was made in 1967. There may be issues that some people might find offensive now. I think that's what this was.
Do you think? See, I didn't get. See, because I've never, especially with suicide, and we're specifically talking about suicide here. You often, I've always seen it at the end of the episode. So it's a big, especially on British TV. It is a thing that if you've watched a show and if
you've watched EastEnders or Coronation Street or something like that, and there's like a heavy subject matter,
anything that covers a heavy subject or something like that, at the end of the episode they will say, if you've suffered, from any of this, here's a few telephone numbers, you can contact the Samaritans XYZ. But with this, they did it at the start.
So it already kind of sets your mind as to like,
yes,
who's like, and it's going to sound really bad, but like, who's going to die then?
Yeah, and with the intro.
Do you think that was a marketing technique? Do you think that was a marketing technique then?
No, I don't think that was. I think that's obviously a new approach for whatever reason. That I'm guessing because of that there has. Everybody's been in lockdown, so
but I don't think it was very good. Like you said, I think you just hit the nail right in the head there. Why not have that at the end of the episode? Why have it at the beginning? Yeah.
I mean, totally. That is the norm. We're used to that over here in the UK, and
that
I know it's
a cultural thing. Then,
maybe it's something in the USA where they put, and because they've just literally, they have to get it from the onto Netflix overnight, if for Europe, that they just literally just took what was on the US screens and put it straight across without the adverts. So maybe it's an American thing that they just didn't edit for Europe. But it was different. And as I said, more back to the story of the show, really. But my heart sunk. I was like, oh no, they're going to kill off Bess.
Well, if there's any American viewers watching this, then give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let us know if that's the kind of thing that happens on shows in the US. Like, do you have those kind of warning cards that come up before the actual show or afterwards? Like, for me personally, I immediately thought, oh wow, I thought Melanie. I was immediately going for Melanie. I don't know why.
I didn't have a clue. It was just, but then they introed, and like, because you did. Because obviously we're starting off with Bess's story and her being made trained detective, but it was that contrast of episode 1. She was there was fear with her. She was starting to question this whole thing, and she was scared. Question 2, episode 2 at the start of it, she's actually questioning her place in the scheme of things, and they've just told us someone kills themselves. So I was like, no, not Bess.
No, Bess.
And honestly, it was just, my heart sunk a little bit. It's a shout out, Bess. You're still with us. God bless you.
For now anyway. So further into the episode, Wilford arranges a prisoner trade. So Kevin, the manager of hospitality for Big Alice, for Melanie Cavill, and there's basically a kind of the border is still in place here. There's like notes being sent between Snowpiercer and Big Alice, and in between all this, we kind of find out that it's essentially one of those kind of like the spy who came in from the cold, very kind of like, hey, you give us your guy, we'll give us your guy. And Wilford and Leighton are both strategizing. They're both like playing the kind of chess pieces that are going to fall down. So essentially they agree to it. But beforehand, Leighton has an interrogation scene with Kevin, the hospitality manager from Big Alice. And he baits him with a plate of chicken wings. Much in the same respect, this was like, from the first series when Leighton first came from the tail end of the section and he was made into the trained detective. The same thing happened with Roach. Roach did exactly the same thing. He kind of had the soup and, it was like, hey, tell me your things. And
it was tomato soup and a grilled cheese.
And a grilled cheese. But obviously they want to get as much information out of Kevin as possible, and that comes into play later on with a certain bath scene with Wilford and Kevin, but we'll get to that in a bit. But I found it interesting that Leighton's using these kind of interrogative techniques that was already applied to him. And I think this might be something that comes in later episodes where Leighton's becoming part of the system. Because, in the first series, he was like all anarchy. He was all about, revolution and taking over. Now he's actually using certain methods that were used against him. I just thought that was it was subtle, but I kind of thought, interesting. Okay, this could come into something later on, perhaps. Or maybe not. Maybe it's just a throwback to what went before.
No, I think you're right. I think they are, because I think we're going to go on a journey of, and we're already seeing it, that this episode, all the seeds were sown for Leighton's side of the train versus Wilford's side of the train, and there very much will be a picking of sides. So we're definitely going to see Leighton make some questionable decisions that we may see some of our regular characters possibly questioning Leighton and possibly turning against him and siding with Wilford.
Do you give your 3-fingered salute to Wilford, Brendan, or do you the Snowpiercer team don't really have their own little salute, shall we say? But
no, I'm just all about the one train.
One train. So the meeting takes place, the prisoner transport takes place, Melanie gets exchanged for Kevin, and then we have the interrogation by Wilford. And I think this is probably one of the most questionable scenes. Like, what did you think of the whole Wilford doing a bath for Kevin scene?
I thought it was really weird. Right?
Yeah.
But that's why I thought it was brilliant. That was supposed to be.
It was
weird.
Uncomfortable. It was meant to be
so uncomfortable. It was supposed to be that. You're supposed to just be like, Wilford's a bit fucked up, isn't he? And that's the point. He's the big bad. So I thought it was fucking brilliant, if I'm honest. It was so uncomfortable. It was so well done. We eventually saw, obviously, now that we've got to that part, it was Kevin who was kind of forced to commit suicide for eating those chicken wings that he was offered.
So let's set the scene. So basically, Kevin comes in to give his report, and while he's doing that in the main car, in Wilford's car, he's running a bath, and Kevin's unsuspecting that Wilford's running a bath for him, and he basically says, "Hey, you've gone through a lot. Take a bath in front of me. That's not weird at all." And so Kevin sort of, reluctantly obliges. So he's in the bath. And that's when Wilford's interrogation happens, and that's where he asks him, did they feed you? Was his first question, I think. And he's like, well, they offered me something, but I didn't eat it, which he ravenously did. Like he kind of ate that shit right up. So he's already lying, and you can tell from Wilford's kind of response that he knows that he's lying. But then when you think, okay, I was thinking he's gonna let loose some kind of ice into the bath and freeze him or something like that. But no, he unrobes and he gets into the bath with Kevin.
He asks Alexandra for the room first, doesn't he?
Yeah, and then as soon as she puts on her headphones, shit's about to go down.
Yeah.
So he gets in the bath, and then there was a point where I was kind of thinking, okay, maybe we're getting into a bit of an insight into Wilford's sexuality. Maybe he likes guys and stuff like this. But it kind of takes a very abrupt, sort of weird turn where when he's asking him about the food, and he's asking him oh, so you've created a vulnerability for us. They know now that we need food. And
because he does admit, doesn't he? He says, well, I had a little bite. He says something about whereas he first says I didn't eat the food, he then admits he did eat some of the food.
And then he hands him the cutthroat razor. And, it's just hey, it's I think the kind of the important sort of part of this scene is that Wilford, it doesn't even need to kind of exude any force, any kind of physical force on this. It's all mental with him. It's all gameplay, and it's
complete
all like complete control, exactly. And that's a big part of his character, I think, is, and that's going to come later on, I believe, in future episodes, is that Wilford doesn't need to exert any kind of force because he's not a powerful man. He's got Icy Bob for that. He's a manipulator, and he's manipulated this guy so much that he will let him kill himself, essentially. So that was an uncomfortable scene. But then the dog coming up as well. Oh, I just lapping at the bathwater.
The bloody bathwater.
The bloody bathwater. And I did make a note of, like, is this like some Elizabeth Bathory shit going on here? Just like Sean Bean's character think that he will, grow younger by bathing in the blood of his enemies or the blood of his victims or something like that? Because that's a kind of, there's a little gothic sort of part of me that kind of thought, yeah, I think he is a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, as I said, he's just a fucked up, twisted. He's obviously he's sick. There's a real darkness to him, so that's a distinct possibility. Yeah, that like you said, I didn't get. You said when he kind of got into the bath, you kind of felt like, is this a thing about his sexuality? I didn't get that at all. I knew you could see what was coming, and I just knew this was just this. He doesn't care. He's weird because he knows because he is weird. It's nothing.
And I think that's maybe where him and LJ are going to have some interactions later on, because like we've already established that LJ is a bit of a sociopath. Yeah. Is Mr. Wilford a sociopath as well, or is he just so power hungry that he'll do anything he wants to get what he wants?
Should be his sick little puppy.
Yeah. So we find out that Josie's back. That was another clanger right there. I don't know. What do you think about that, Brendan? I wasn't.
Well, in that scene, the way it ended out, I didn't mind because I didn't see it coming. But when I thought they were going to kill her, so when Zara, so that obviously we kind of see a deep look into Zara. Zara's a little bit of a sick puppy as well there, but you can maybe see where she's coming from, where she just wants to protect her family and her interests. But when we have the revelation that Josie's alive, somebody saved her and brought her to the medical bay, and she amazingly survived, but fair dues. And then Zara proceeds in trying to kill her.
Yeah, she tries to give us some like.
And
I was
at that moment, I was like, have you seriously brought Josie back, and you're gonna kill her off within 2 minutes of being on the screen? Obviously, it turned out Zara had a change of heart. She didn't kill Josie, and she kind of took. I don't mind that. I can 100% see we're gonna see some serious skin grafting going on with Josie.
The gloop from Big Alice is going to be used, and then within a couple of episodes she'll be back to her normal self. Here's my problem with Josie coming back. I don't like when any kind of TV show brings back a character that died. Like, come on. She was left in the room with Melanie. The whole cabin turned to ice. She is not alive. I'll be honest with you.
No, I'm with you.
I was sitting there going, oh, you've gone down this road? Really, Snowpiercer? Are you going down this road? And the reason why that she's only been brought back is to cause a wedge between Leighton, Zara, and Melanie. And it's
I don't even think Melanie. I think it's literally to build...
Melanie killed her. Melanie essentially killed her. That was the defining moment in series 1. That was the hardest choice that Melanie had to make, was killing Josie. And
good point.
You could sort of argue that maybe fair enough. They didn't, like, Leighton and her didn't really have a kind of resolution to that, or they didn't really actually discuss it much really in that respect. And now it's going to be brought up because in episode 3 she's going to be talking and she's going to say, hey, you know who killed me? Melanie. So it's that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think where it really will come up is we're definitely seeing Melanie. Obviously, from what we find out later, Melanie is going to be taking a break from the train. Yeah. And I think it will be upon Melanie's return where we will have our Josie, Melanie kind of, you killed me, bitch.
Yeah. Well, that's the next point we get into now. So Melanie's little sample that she took from the snow, it gets revealed that the CW7 that was like launched into the atmosphere to kind of help global warming, that obviously created the kind of dystopian future that we're now in, it's actually now starting to disperse in the environment, and it's causing the temperature to lower. And there is the whole kind of
to
point
rise.
of it. Sorry, the temperatures rise. You're completely right. I was looking at it in respect when they're in the train and the temperature's going down, and I'm like, oh, the temperature's going down. No, it's rising. You're absolutely right. Sorry, Brendan. My science is not good. I don't do science that good. My heart's there, though. My heart's there.
Yeah.
So essentially, the whole point of it is that the world is becoming warmer. And so Leighton and Melanie come up with a plan to basically say to Wilford, like, let's unite. Let's get one train going on here. Instead of like fusing the two trains and having all this palaver going on, why don't we unite the trains? Why don't we pull our resources together, but also at the same time kind of exposing him as the kind of Machiavellian, mustache twirling kind of character that he is.
Yeah, you didn't really give the plan much justice there. You skipped a beat there, mate, because what you've missed out is the fact that this is actually, it's not Leighton and Melanie trying to bring the train together. This is a tactical move because they need Wilford's equipment. So, and Leighton actually says it. He said, I used to play chess with this guy, and the tactic to win is to initially give up the middle ground. And Melanie questions that. Why would you do that? Because he'll have to do everything out in the open, and we can make it a him versus us. So it's not kind of like, let's all get together because we're one team. It's more, we're going to beat this guy by joining this guy.
But obviously there is that kind of like essence of like, there is hope now. Like, there is hope in the world. We've been on this train for like 18 years, and now there is a semblance of some kind of colonization.
Totally. But you still.
Oh yeah, but the main point was that
this is a tactic of war.
Yeah, definitely a tactic.
Yeah.
So Wilford comes on board. They will sit down to have lunch, and she essentially puts the plan out there. In essence, though, she exiles herself because there's a compound that is off the track. I'm not entirely sure how this works, Brendan. Maybe you kind of picked up on this.
Yeah. So basically, what it is it's they have almost like a satellite station, right? Mm-hmm. But what they need to do is for the satellite station to work, it needs to be manned. Right, so what they're going to do is they're going to release satellites into the sky at different various points around the world as they circuit it, and that's going to send back a signal to the satellite station that in essence kind of gives them the data to work out what's going to be the warmest place.
Yeah, hotspots. I think.
What are the hotspots? But the satellite station needs to be manned, so someone has to get off the train in order to maintain the satellite station and get the information they need.
And that person being Melanie Cavill.
Melanie, and that in essence is, to start with, I didn't quite get that, but then it was realised it was like, Wilford was like, basically, I'll help you, I'll give you all the resources you need, we will team up, we'll go with your plan, but on one proviso, that the person who gets off the train and mans the station is Melanie.
So do you think this is going to be, so series 2, you get to a kind of point where you kind of think to yourself, we've seen these characters before. Do you think they're going to go outside now? Do you think they're going to be looking for outside locations as such?
No, I think it will be one. I think there will be a location, but it will just be Melanie. And I've actually got a funny feeling that might, I don't know, like the way they spoke about it is it will take a month to come back because they're going to take an alternative route. They said
pick me up in a month. Like,
yeah,
be there for a month.
I'm intrigued as to how many episodes that is in regards to our watching timeline.
Is this a kind of part where Jennifer Connelly wanted to kind of like have a holiday or something like that? When characters are written out of shows sometimes because they just need to have a bit of time off. Is this going to be one of those things, or are we going to have like a kind of subplot where we're on Snowpiercer and Big Alice but we also find this new compound,
and
maybe
Jennifer every so often.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've got a feeling that we're actually going to have. I think we're going to see. I think we definitely will see this compound, this satellite station, and Jennifer Connelly there, and however that goes, or Melanie there, should we say? But how long that lasts for, and how many episodes? I do get the feeling that there's a little, like you said, there's a little bit we need to write Jennifer Connelly out for a few episodes right now, because as you said, she's only contracted to do X episodes this season, or she needs a holiday, or whatever it is. So I think we might not see that straight away.
Yeah. So one thing as well that kind of bugged me about this episode was, in between the kind of point where Leighton and Melanie are asking Wilford and co to kind of turn up to discuss this scientific new marvel, on his side he's saying like, this is the point now where we take over Snowpiercer. So he kind of prompts Alexandra to essentially kill Leighton, or
does
kill...
he? I didn't.
Well, this is the thing. This is what I didn't. I kind of got the feeling the pace of this was going so quickly that maybe I missed something. But there was a point where they're sitting down.
That was Alexandra on her own. That was Alexandra on her own.
There's a point at the end of the meeting where he goes, now, and then she cuts herself in the hand, but doesn't do anything. And then it's like,
does he say now?
I think he says now. I could be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure. Like, I was thinking that because she's sort of edging her way forward, she's slowly moving her way forward, and it's building up this crescendo to like something's going to happen, but then nothing does. I
think I didn't hear him say now, and I never got I got the feeling that she was completely on her own there. Wilford had nothing to do with that, wasn't aware of what she was planning, but that was her plan, was to take out...
Oh no, because there was that whole scene before where like she's got the razor blade in her mouth, because she's like obviously practicing getting a razor blade out of her mouth into the little shank that she's made, and he comes along and he seems perfectly aware of what's going on, and he even says to her, you know, oh, so when we take over the train and everything like this. So that's what I kind of felt. Maybe that was something that was written in, but then later on discarded. That's the feeling I got. The feeling I got was that it was meant to be like some kind of takeover attempt.
No, I think she tried to hide the razor blade from him.
No, there was a point basically. So she put the razor blade in the makeshift shank, and then her mother was making this speech about the fact that she was going to go to this new compound or wherever it is, and that's where she cuts her hand, because obviously you can feel the conflict within her, like in this Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker sort of way, which is inevitably going to come. You know that Alexandra's going to turn against Wilford in a way, but there was that moment. And that's why I thought like, oh, so she's not going to do this assassination attempt, or she's not going to try and take over the train. But then there was a moment where Wilford turns around and goes, maybe he says stop, or maybe he says don't, and maybe that's why. And then they kind of walk back to Big Alice, and then she kind of smears her hand on the wall after saying to her mum, I hope this wasn't for me. And then Melanie turns around and says, this is for everyone. Yeah. But I felt that was a bit disjointed. I thought that whole scene was a little bit disjointed with Alexandra's assassination attempt, if you could call it that.
Hold on 1 second.
I can hear it in the background. I can see you're looking.
1 second.
Yeah.
I just want to see what he actually says to her, because he does. Maybe. I think he says no. In fact, let me put the subtitles on.
It could be no. It could. I think I heard it as now, but it could be no. Like maybe he saw like future opportunities for stuff, or his real target was Melanie. Like he kept on saying, like, because he's reiterated from the first episode and this episode that his real target is later.
Yeah, I think
he's kind of made out.
I think you might be right. I think you're right.
But by doing this, he's exiling Melanie and therefore making his progress to become the owner of Snowpiercer again absolute. Maybe, perhaps.
Yeah, I think you could be right. That was really subtle, so I think you might be right, where they might have ended up having just to cut a line or something to fit time in, and it didn't just come, because I didn't get the grasp that Wilford was in on that at all. But just by the line of him going no, and then like as she says no, she cuts the blade into her hand, like almost in frustration, it seems.
Yeah.
So I think you might be right. I think Wilford possibly, that was an attempted
The thing is, I just hope, because the pacing of series 2 has been so fast, that I hope they don't lose certain little, subtle moments, because everything's moving so fast. Like, you look back at the first series, and there was so many like subplots and so many like character parts that were just so sublime, that I hope they don't really do that for this series to compensate for like action and pacing, because it's a very fast-paced show. And there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of characters going on. And this is go back to one of your predictions from last week, Brendan, where you were saying like who's going to die, and like we did have a death this episode, but it wasn't a main character really, if you will. It was done.
He'd only been in it. But Kevin had been in it for one episode, so.
So what questions? Do you have any questions, Brendan, in this episode?
It was just more. Well, what was your take on the end? So kind of you had the concept of Bess is obviously on the murder investigation. I forget the name of the character, but one of the characters from the Tale who had kind of helped the guys out during the episode had been attacked and had her two outside fingers cut, and that was almost. So
you had the thumb and the last finger cut off.
So you've got the symbol of the Wilford W with the hand.
Yeah.
And it was almost like the revelation of Bess has what is that what it is? Is Bess has realised that there's an awful lot of pro Wilford guys on this train right now.
Yeah, that's what I gathered from it. Like the point where he kind of like does his 3-fingered salute, and then she's like, oh no, and then she kind of connects the dots. In that kind of detective way
of Wilford.
Yeah, and as he's walking down in the slow motion way down the tunnel back to Big Alice, and you just see all these other people giving the 3-fingered W salute. Which I gotta say does have a bit of a kind of weird historic kind of sense to it, maybe.
Totally. I mean, it's that kind of cult thing, isn't it?
I thought that maybe was a bit on the nose. I didn't know if I was just sitting there going like, "Oh, that's a bit, leather booted, chicken walking sort of stuff going on there, isn't it?"
Not necessarily. I get you totally. It's the concept of it was more. I think it was more. That's the symbol, and it's like the revelation of fuck. This isn't one train. It was the cult of Wilford is the way I would kind of describe it. You couldn't go as far as to kind of compare it to the Nazis. I don't think.
Yeah.
More. Damn, Wilford's got a lot more
loyalty
on this train than we ever thought he did.
So I think that's a prelude to like future episodes. I think there is going to be another.
Remember, technically, this is war. So this is just the start. The final words of episode 1 were this is going to be a long, cold war. This is war. This is Leighton's tactic of war. Clearly, Sean Bean is at the tactic of war, because we've kind of cut to the chase with just by going back and watching it that Sean Bean was going to try and assassinate Leighton anyway. So this is war. Obviously, Melanie's thrown a spanner in the works with, hey, it might be warming up outside.
Yeah.
So
my question to that is like, how many times can they do like the power play routine until it gets a bit boring? In the first series,
I think it's more because this is different. It's not power play, because series 1 was always Leighton's plan to try and free the Tale. Right, whereas this is a war between two factions on the train, and I think that's where we're going with this. You're going to see an awful lot, and I think we. But
it's essentially the same thing. They've reskinned it. So whereas you had in the first series, you had Leighton, the Tailies against the basically Snowpiercer, the upper class. Now you've got Wilford.
This is slightly different because the Tailie, it was more. If you think about it, in series 1, it was trying to escape the Tale, and it was you had a leader, it was a dictator, you had somebody who was in charge of everything. It wasn't a democracy. Mr. Wilford or Melanie in series 1 was in charge of the train. What she said goes. What they wanted was equality. They wanted democracy. So it was the fight against a dictatorship to become a democracy. Now what we're going to see is we're going to see the conflicts that democracy can bring.
I think it's really interesting to kind of see that, as I said before, like at the very beginning, Leighton's interrogation of Kevin and how he was using techniques used on him previously and he's using them now. I would like to see, as a prediction, for example, for like future episodes, that although Leighton became this kind of, Che Guevara type figure in the first series, where he was trying to overthrow the oppressors, he becomes part of the system. He basically becomes the thing that he hates, but he doesn't realize it until it's like too late. I think that would be a good way for his character arc to go, because so far he's had a bit of a laid back sort of, experience here. He's just been reacting to things. And I'd like to see him shine a little bit more in future episodes. And I think that will come with the kind of the powerhouse head nutting with Wilford, but in a kind of logical kind of way, in a kind of way that's more chess based rather than I'm just reacting to this because of this happening. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, what I think we'll definitely see conflicts in Leighton. What I actually think is a possibility, just from the way the way we've been discussing it, is I think you could very much see a scenario where the people, or where there's a conflict between Leighton and Wilford, and I can see this happening, a scene where Wilford says, well, why don't we put it to the people? Let the people decide, and the people side with Wilford.
I think you're right. I think that would be very kind of.
I can 100% see that happening, because what you're then going to see is, because we know that the bottom line is Leighton's our good guy here. We know that there's no messing about. But yes, of course, it's a fucked up world. It's the conflict. But
Brendan, are we talking about Brexit here? Is that what just happened? Did we just talk about Brexit? and in America with essence, Trump? Is that what happened?
This is what I think. I mean, when you think about when it was made,
I think you're absolutely right.
There's going to be elements. I think that's going to happen. We're going to have a scene where the people side with Wilford. There's a vote on something, whatever, probably an execution, because that will make it really deep. Does this person live or die? Let the people decide. Leighton, you said it's the people's train. Well, let them decide. And they vote against Leighton, and it's then the conflict of Leighton is, do I conform to this? Do I accept this? Because we know Leighton deep down is the good guy. He's trying to do the best for everyone. He is about that kind of equality side. That's his character. But what lengths does he have to go to? And, and that's where I think we might see conflict with Leighton. And then obviously he's going to have conflict with the whole Josie and I've forgotten her name, which is bad. Zara. But yeah, I can see it going down that kind of path where Leighton is now questioning the people he's been fighting for. Yeah.
Well, on that bombshell, I think we're going to wrap it up there for episode 2, Smolder to Life. Brendan, sign us out, sir, in your indomitable way.
Guys, if you want to check out anything inside your screen, your first port of call is YouTube, because we have everything that we create on YouTube. We have all our podcasts. We've got game reviews. We've got movie reviews. We've got bite-sized podcasts. If you want to check out the previous season of Snowpiercer, we've got a Killing Eve podcast on there. But the first port of call is to search inside your screen on YouTube, because all of our content goes on there. Second point, if you just can't be bothered with YouTube, or you want to listen to us offline and you can download, we're a podcast, so we're on all your major podcast platforms. We're on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're on SoundCloud, we're everywhere where you can download a podcast. So if you wanted to download us, listen to us on your journey to work when you're offline, do it at all those major platforms. Again, search Inside Your Screen podcast. You'll find all our episodes are there. And I think that's it.
And good night. Tune in with us next week as we go into episode 3. What will be happening with Leighton, Melanie, and all the others? Tune in to find out.
And Bess.
And Bess, of course. And Ruth. I can't believe you forgot Ruth. The woman you love, you secretly love.
I don't need to mention Ruth.
Yeah.
Inside your dreams.